And I think this was the whole idea with OpenAI assistants, to be honest. It's just I don't think they really got the user interface right.
They
What they have
didn't.
now is this drag and drop canvas, which basically does the same thing. You add some, some files to search over. They now have some tool call functionality like web search that's natively built in. And then, like to me, the actual novel, not groundbreaking thing, but the new thing is their interfaces, right? Like the fact that you can present this data in an interface. That's pretty cool to me. And the fact they have a template library for the interfaces within the chatbot, because when I think about like the value of AI, it's right now constrained to just like a text message type interface, input, output, right? But the idea of like adding interfaces directly into the chat thing is kind of cool. So I could see that like transforming, I guess, just like interfaces in general. Remember like back in the 70s, 80s or whatever, or maybe like your very first computer you ever played around with, like DOS, black background with like little green blinking cursor. Like I think that's kind of analogous to how AI interfaces are nowadays. And so I think like the introduction of these interfaces as features, or like these modals or whatever the heck, they're doing with their template library, I think that's basically like a solid push in the direction from DOS to like, Windows 95 or 93 or whatever the very first like graphical user interface Windows drop was.
Dude, that's an interesting point you make, actually, man. Can I riff on this idea of the market? Because OpenAI's direction here is interesting, because Nick and I have talked a lot about the fact that the models are converging on, there's some differentiation, like Grok is based. I freaking love Grok now, by the way. Claude is known for code, ChatGPT is known for image and video. We've all got their like individual lanes. It's just interesting for me to see how OpenAI strategically is moving and pivoting their business. Like the social media app we talked about last week. Now we've got this new no-code workflow builder. They're kind of expanding their tentacles into multiple different domains and levels. And one of the biggest questions with the AI that was unanswered was, where is all the value being created? Is it at the language model level? Is it at the application layer? Is it at chips like NVIDIA, for example? And if you're investing, you'd probably want some exposure at every level. But to me, it increasingly backs up the point that I've been making for a long time now, which is that I do believe all the value realistically is in the application. Is Claude, OpenAI, are they going to be where all the value is? Well, if the trend continues, you can pretty much use any model. I mean, we all have our preferences, right, bro? Like, is it Claude? Are we using OpenAI? But realistically, you could switch every single one I have in a live scenario. It wouldn't really make that much difference. There are some niche cases like web performance and speed and things, but ultimately it wouldn't change everything. If you removed one and said, Jack, you can never use it, I wouldn't lose any sleep about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're all trained off the internet, basically. And there are these marginal improvements to like the language model infrastructure that we're doing. But it's kind of the equivalent of like the same hardware, and then we're just adding new software. So we're getting more efficient and effective at running on the same hardware, same CPU or whatever. But these are basically all like software improvements at this point. RLHF to like improve the responses, chain of thought prompting. Like fundamentally speaking, the hardware, so to speak, has reached limits a couple of years ago, really, and like hasn't actually proceeded that much. Granted, a lot you can do with software, clearly.
Dude, did you see that like they tested ChatGPT, like where to get most of its data from, and like 60+% is Reddit.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's
almost interesting
like,
because Google has like a partnership with Reddit, so presumably that's where they're scraping a lot of their information from.
To be fair, oftentimes when I go, like I was trying to buy a cooler, and I literally always add Reddit at the end of it because I'm looking for human answers rather than like predefined curated articles. So yeah, I mean, and maybe that's a hack actually. Yeah, I might play around with that. Like a buddy of mine, he said, dude, he was selling some stuff, and he had like a Reddit thread made about him. I don't know if I told you a story or not, but you type his name in, and honestly, Nick, like the first result I think was his name. We'll call him Bendover scam. Like, he said, like, Jack, I have to get rid of this thing. I have to get rid of it. It's so bad. I said, well, how many people actually Google you when they buy from you? He said, like, all the time, like all the time. So you want to own it for your name, right? Which is cool if you've got like a funny name. I was like, okay, interesting. And so we were kind of thinking about it a minute, and he was telling me there's like contacts you can get in Reddit, like behind the scenes guys. You pay them like $3,000 or $5,000 or something, and they'll like delete it. And I was like,
unbelievable.
He hasn't yet. I'm actually going to Google it now in the background. But I was like, that's so bad. And it's like, I was like, okay, but say for example, like whether it's true or not, I don't know, right? I'm assuming it's not. But imagine if it's not true and someone does just genuinely make a Reddit thread about you that says, I think so-and-so is a scam.
Yeah.
And then other people who, because the thing is, if you're big enough, like I'm sure, like any entrepreneur, right? Elon Musk, people like hate him or whatever. Like, there's always going to be some people have some negative to say. And it's just crazy about that. And like, I think what a lot of them did were they'd create, if their negative press got to such a level, they would create and try and own the search term. So it's like, hey, bend over a scam. And they would actually create the video so they would rank above the actual video exposing it as a scam.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think this has happened to me a couple of times. And I think there are a few threads that were made about me quite a while ago that I tried to like figure out like where they were from. And they're all from like Reddit accounts that have, you know, like zero karma or whatever, or like no history. They were made like that day. Then, you know, you check like the Reddit comment thread and it's all just like a bunch of people that like had just had their accounts made that day. They're like commenting, yeah, you know, Nick is a total scammer, total piece of shit, whatever. I was thinking about it and I was like, man, what a fantastic like takedown campaign. Like, you know, because if I want real info on Nick or Jack, like I'm typing like Jack Roberts Reddit, you know, Nick Strive Reddit. Like that's what I'm always going to do. I'm not going to go like top 10 Nick Sariah videos because I'm going to get some SEO bullshit slop, right? I'm going to go on Reddit and I'm going to hear what real people have to say. So all this to say there's like a disproportionate outcome that you can drive just by like very particular Reddit queries. And back when I owned that PR agency, which I may have brought up a couple of times now, but I went down to Prague with a good friend of mine and business partner, and then we like turned around a PR agency that was really struggling at the time. Like one of their number one things that they would do the second that they got a new client was they would go through and they would like sanitize their Reddit, you know, like they would sanitize the Reddit search queries for the company. And likewise, you know, if there were any issues or anything like that, like it showed me how fragile the state of reputation really was, which is so unfortunate. Yeah. And I've since seen this sort of thing play out en masse, like on various YouTube channels. Yeah, it's tough, man. But like getting back to the Agent Kit Builder, like what do you think about the GUI, like the drag and drop interface?
The drag and drop interface, it's so funny because I have like a million things to say on the whole other thing. Yeah, the drag and drop interface, I think it was cool. I think it was a little clunky, to be fair. But I did really like how, this is all constructive feedback because I love the direction we're taking. It's on the right hand side. It's like when you play it back, like where you could actually see it and it could show you how it all played. I thought that was a really cool interface, man. So I thought it was to be applauded, man, to be fair. What do you think?
Yeah, same. No, I thought the exact same. Dude, they're going to add a couple of hotkeys and then it's going to like rival N8N in terms of ease of use, I think. Not the functionality and like the connections and stuff, but like imagine just having like the tab key or something like a T key. Like to me, having to like manually do the connections was kind of clunky and kind of annoying. And I was like, listen, bro, if you got like super intelligence in a box, can't you just ask it to like automatically snap the things from like inputs to outputs?
It does.
Maybe they're going to do that. I don't know.
You know what? I was thinking about this, and you know, we talk about like the direction of travel that everything's been becoming, you know, increasingly commoditized for workflow building.
Yeah.
That actually, what I realized was I don't think the end state anymore is I want this workflow to do this thing because one thing. Okay, and let me give you a micro example of this prompting. Okay. You are, well, not you, but like people are bad at giving ChatGPT prompts. Like you don't explain what it is that you need. And you know this is true because you always have to follow up with other specifics. Oh, actually, no, I meant XYZ. So I think to some extent, even if you create the workflow with text, you still need to be able to go into it and easily edit and configure it. So for example, if I say I want an agent that can create emails or can like check multiple things, I still want to go and validate, okay, does it have the right permissions? Can it do the right things? Are they connected things right? So I think even if the creation process is really easy, there's still going to be a need to be able to lift open the box and look at the wires to see if they're there or not. I don't think you can remove it because people are not good at articulating the rules. Only in a world where you could perfectly articulate the rules could you have a no system. And I don't think that can exist.
Well, that's a good point, actually, because like with code, the whole idea is that you perfectly articulate what you want. It just takes a long time to do that articulation, right? But now that the barrier of articulation is gone, there's so many assumptions that are being made by these models. So it almost seems obvious in a chat style interface that like you would expect there to be multiple follow-ups to revise. It's like one shot gets you 80% to what you want, but then you got to correct and go this way. And then the other time you got to go this way and then that way. And then finally you end up at like your actual goal. Do you know what I mean? So If that's true, then the ease of use with which you can make modifications now is like the real like 80-20, you know? 100%. So that's fascinating. Maybe the drag and drop thing. Maybe there is something to be said about that.
Yeah, well, dude, it's like I was speaking to a dude today. He was like does a lot of consulting with really, really, really large businesses, and he was saying a lot of the SaaS companies are very concerned about AI. But the thing is, if you've got a business making $50 to $100 million, you're at the level, where you could just float if you wanted to. But also, you're expected to have a 5 to 10 year view on your market. So there's an expectation that you have I think if you're less than that, you don't really need to think that long forward. But they're thinking genuinely about, like, if AI exponentially gets better, is it getting to the point where it renders B2B SaaS? I know LinkedIn will crumble at the mere thought of this, but if we remove B2B SaaS, what happens, right? So they're concerned and unsure how to grapple with AI and what it means for their business on that level. Like, how does that actually change how they use it and stuff? And more generally, I'm saying that my assessment of where we're at now, bro, is that we are 2 years post the initial sparkling of AI. I think a lot of businesses have been burned. There's a lot that are just still ignorant to what's possible, but a lot of them have tried stuff and it hasn't quite worked. So I think there's a real opportunity for clarity and expertise with this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It is pretty crazy, huh? Because like there are all these short-term fluctuations and like signal to noise things, and it's like, oh, like AI capabilities are plateauing, or like, oh, this is going to be the new way of things, and like, oh, this is going to be the new way of things, and like they have such like short like time horizons. But if you just zoom out, like just look at like the state of the economy pre 2020ish, and then like knowledge economy pre 2020ish and post 2020ish. Like everybody works nowadays in a fundamentally different way.
They do.
Like it is indisputable that AI is like advancing extraordinarily quickly, and it's starting to permeate basically every factor of our lives. So, I mean, like no shit, right? Like you and I understand this intuitively, but anybody that's trying to push back against it, oh, it's like a short-term phenomenon, or oh, well, it's not very good at code yet, or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, obviously, like the alphas and like learning how to apply it to these things like ASAP, because it's inevitable and it's obviously coming. Do you know what I mean? Like there are all these short-term things, but just look at the state of like an average person's workday pre-2020 to now. Average person's workday pre-2020, zero AI. Whatever the AI models back then were, right? Average person's workday today, probably like 50% just communicating with AI, mapping things, scaffolding things.
You could not use it, bro. 100%. Dude, I was having a little play around actually. So I was watching a video by someone who went on for Diary of a CEO. So like, if you're thinking of doing a like ultimate tier podcast run, it would probably end with going on the Joe Rogan Experience, right?
Yeah.
And or Stephen Bartlett would probably be top of the business pinnacle. There's maybe a few, maybe Chris Williamson. There's like a couple at the top, right? And his idea that, like, 'cause I was like, okay, let's say that you want to build up like a brand, like, and you wanted to work your way up. So like I thought this was really interesting. So because Daniel Priest was talking about this, who's kind of doing quite well with his branding and marketing now. We covered him in the video a couple of weeks ago, and his philosophy I think is worth discussing.